Hi friends! In today's episode, I'll be answering some questions that came in after last week's dairy goat episode. I'll be focusing on the actual milking process, including stand training your does, milking equipment, and milk handling, the way it works for us. We're a little unconventional in our dairying practices, so listen in if you lean towards doing things your own way. Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goat-Wise podcast. Are you longing to raise goats and other animals for food but don't know where to start? Do you want to be more self-sufficient and less dependent on the grocery store? Do you wish you had a mentor to walk you through raising livestock? Hi, I'm Millie, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. For 15 years, I've been on a mission to raise all of our own meat, eggs, and dairy. Here, we'll talk about raising goats and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock. Hey there! Do you want to hang out with like-minded folks who are also interested in raising their own livestock and seeking self-sufficiency? Inside the free Raising Goats and Homestead Livestock community, you'll get tips on raising goats and other livestock and ideas to increase your self-sufficiency. Join now at bit.ly/getgoatwisecommunity. You can also become an insider and get weekly emails from me with the latest podcast episode, tips on raising goats and other livestock, real-life information about self-sufficiency and living off-grid, and early bird access to special offers. Sign up at bit.ly/getgoatwiseinsider. Here's what's happening on the ranch. We made a lot of progress on the building this week. All we could see was storms coming up in the forecast starting last night and continuing out as far as we can see, so we were really motivated to make some progress. On the roof, we got a lot finished, right up to the point of putting the metal on, but it was too windy, so we stopped. And then we woke up to 4 inches of snow this morning. It wasn't a surprise. We knew it was coming, but we were in a position where it's okay. We'll wait for it to melt off, and then we'll get back to work. And I think all of us are okay to take a little bit of a break. We've been working pretty hard. It's Thanksgiving week, and I have so much to be grateful for. I am grateful for all of you who tune in and listen. This is a fun project for me, and I hope it helps you make progress on your homesteading or goat raising goals. I love Thanksgiving and being reminded of how blessed we are, how far we've come, and our responsibility to serve others with the blessings and resources we've been entrusted with. We don't take a lot of time off for the holiday. Heck, we don't take a lot of time off ever. We'll cook a good meal with lots of homemade treats, and then we'll probably work on the building and be grateful that we can. Winter ranch chores are getting routine, and we each have our duties. Stacy handles all the watering, including the does and kids in the night traps, bucks in the buck pens, and then he hauls water to the heifers and steer. Ray and Sage feed the does, kids, bucks, and calves, and then Ray feeds and waters in the barn and then feeds his 4-H steer. Sage feeds the dogs. Darcy takes care of the laying hens and her 2 new chickens and gets eggs. And then I milk and feed the new bottle calf. It is strange not having the show goats around. We would be getting the barn ready and preparing for kidding in the next couple months. Instead, we're rearranging the barn to have a place for Ray's 4-H steer when the weather is bad. And pretty soon, the laying hens will move up to the barn too. The dairy does are in with the new buck, and I've seen 2 in heat and written that down, so if they settle, I'll know when to expect them to kid. If you don't have a gestation calendar for goats, I have one you can download in the guides in the free community. I had some questions about dairy does after last week's episode, so I thought I'd continue on this week with a part 2 of our unconventional dairy management plan. Let's start with stand training. I see a lot of folks with dairy goats who hobble or tie down their hind legs every time they milk. No judgment here if you do that, but I'll explain why I don't. I want my does to willingly jump up on the stand and then be still while I milk. let me move their legs where they need to be, and then keep them there for the most part. It takes a lot of work to get to that point, but it's worth it to me. When I first start milking a doe and training her to our milking process, it can take 45 minutes to an hour each time. I have rails that I put up on my stand, and that keeps the doe from falling off the other side. I try to move slowly and steadily and try not to spook her. I persist even when she kicks and jumps. That way, I'm not rewarding her for getting her way. I use my arm as a guard to block the kicking leg and hold it out of the way for a second or two, then slowly lower it down where I want it to be and go back to milking. Do I ever use hobbles? Yes, I have used hobbles that sit above the hocks and apply pressure to stop the doe from kicking. It's been years since I've used them. I would use them again if I had a doe that was really anxious or nervous and couldn't settle down on the stand, and I'd exhausted all my tricks to get her to calm down. I have not ever used the hobbles that tether each hind leg to its side of the stand, and I don't have any plans to use them. Stand training is a long process with lots of spilled milk and some frustration. But I've done this enough times now that I know it's worth it to work through these early milkings. Why? Well, my does run to the stand. They're excited to be there and eat their grain while I milk. In fact, this morning, one of the does who was particularly challenging was bucking and playing on her way to jump on the stand. That's a happy goat. I don't have to take the time to restrain them, which saves me extra work and time. And if I want to, I can just milk them out in the pen. I don't have to have them hobbled to milk them. I get to know each doe and how they behave when I milk. That way I can work with them and their individual behaviors, and I'm able to read their movements and know what they're going to do before they do it. Getting to know them and learning how to work with them makes me a better goat owner. I have one doe who takes a step forward the moment I finish milking, so if I don't move the bucket immediately when I'm done, she steps in it. I know this about her, so she rarely actually steps in the bucket anymore because I move it. I try not to assign human emotions to animals, but I also think it's good to evaluate how our processes and actions can be causing animals to exhibit difficult or challenging behavior. Think about it like this. If a doe associates being restrained every time she's on the milking stand, it's probably going to take a while before she's willing to jump up there on her own and stand to be milked. Also, this process, in my mind, prepares me for the future goal of owning the dairy cow. If you're also using goats to learn and prepare for eventually owning a dairy cow, routine restraint may not be the best option. Take this as an opportunity to learn to work with the animal and make it a pleasant experience for both of you. Remember, a cow's kick packs a lot more punch than a goat, so being able to read her body language and anticipate her movements is even more important. Similar to the above-the-hock pressure hobbles in goats, a kick bar can help in the training phase to protect you, but the goal would still be to have a cow that enjoyed being around you and was a willing participant in the milking process. One that eventually you could let your kids milk and feel safe. I did an Instagram reel a couple years back, and I'll link that in the show notes, where you can see how one of my does jumps up on the stand and even how I block her leg if she lifts it to keep her from setting it down in the bucket. All right, next, let's move on to the milking process and cleanliness. If you can provide a clean place for your dairy does to bed and lay down, then your job in getting them clean before milking is going to be so much easier. Additionally, clean bedding and a clean place for your dairy does to lay down is one of the best things you can do to proactively prevent mastitis. I know this isn't always easy. During the mud season, keeping them clean is really, really hard. But do your best and you'll see the reward. When I have a dirty goat, I go ahead and wash her with warm soapy water before milking. I milk into a stainless steel bucket. I know people milk into plastic and that's fine too. If by chance she steps in the bucket, The milk goes to the pigs or chickens, and the bucket needs to be washed before you milk any further. I milk everything by hand. I don't even own a milking machine. The reason being is, in our off-grid living situation, hot water is a valuable commodity. It is lots of work to clean a machine without hot water readily available. So for our situation, it's just easier to hand milk. After I milk, I filter into a half-gallon mason jar. I will put a link to my favorite milk strainer and the filters we use in the show notes. The milk strainer I use the most, I actually have 2 of now because I like them that much. It's 2 simple pieces. It's a funnel type piece and a stainless steel ring that is easily replaceable if you lose it. The ring holds the actual filter in place, so all you have to wash is this funnel-shaped part and the ring, and there's no little crevices in it, there's no grid holes to try to get clean. It works out really, really well. When you're washing your milk bucket and your strainer, you do want to use cold water first. I know that feels kind of counterintuitive. However, hot water immediately will cause the milk proteins to bind to the surface that they're on. So if you rinse with cold water first, you will actually get your equipment cleaner than if you start with hot water. I do use purchased filters. I would be comfortable filtering through cheesecloth or a towel. I know that's not for everyone, but I'm okay with that for my family because of our management and testing. But you get to decide what you're okay with for you and your family. So why do I use a purchased filter? Well, it is an excellent mastitis indicator. If you're using a regular filter and the milk starts to filter really slowly, you need to watch that doe for mastitis. I also do have a California mastitis test kit for cattle. I will use that on goats if I have a suspicion of a doe with mastitis. As far as actually handling the milk and how to do that for the best tasting milk, I'm sure you've all had goat milk or goat cheese or something that tasted goaty. What we mean by that is it has a distinct taste that is similar to how a buck smells. So the number 1 trick is to get the milk cold as fast as possible, and that helps eliminate the goaty taste. In the summer when it's hot, you can use 2 buckets. So you're going to use a bigger bucket and you're going to put ice in that bucket and then put your smaller bucket inside of that and actually milk into the smaller bucket. The ice will cool the milk really, really quickly. Once you've got your milk filtered and in the jars, you can put it in the freezer to cool it rapidly. But remember, especially if you have glass jars, set a timer. It's a little bit like filling a water trough. You always think you'll remember to go back and check, but inevitably you forget, and you'll either break the jar or overfill the trough, so to speak. When does are in with a buck, the milk will usually be strong and goaty, and I do not know how to combat that, and I don't know anyone who does. So that milk I use for bottle babies and feeding other livestock. After the milk has been refrigerated for a day or 2, you can sometimes see a cream line, but it's nothing like a cow cream line. Goat milk is naturally homogenized, so the cream stays in suspension. If you want to separate the cream from goat milk, you need special equipment called a separator to get that cream out of the milk and make butter in any meaningful quantity. We don't separate the cream from the milk, but we do substitute the goat milk for the milk and the cream in ice cream recipes. And my family likes that. Remember that the majority of our milk production goes right back to baby goats or baby calves or things like that. We do drink it. I'm not afraid to drink it. I'm not afraid of raw milk. But again, that's a decision that you're going to have to make for your family. If you are going to get further into home dairying, like making cheese and doing things like that, then you're going to want to invest in a course or some books to really get that necessary knowledge to make sure you're doing it safely. I hope this episode helps you work through the practical details of dairy goats, including stand training, keeping things clean, milk handling, and finding the best way to manage dairy goats for your family. Hey there, thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email linked in the show notes, and meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.